Transformation begins within. It is the realization that before you can change the world around you, before you can influence anyone else's actions or thoughts, you must first change the way you see and approach yourself. This principle holds the key to true strength in any situation, especially when facing relational challenges. We often think that the power to alter dynamics lies in the hands of others, the ones we wish to influence, or in this case, the one we wish to crush or outgrow. But the truth is, the most profound changes happen when we begin with the transformation of our own hearts and minds. When facing the difficult journey of detaching from someone or breaking free from emotional entanglement, it is easy to focus on the other person. We become fixated on their actions, words, and behavior, thinking that if we could just change them, everything would be fine. But this mentality gives away our personal power. We become trapped in a cycle of dependence on someone else's behavior, hoping they will act in a way that suits us. The key is to realize that the only person you have control over is yourself. And when you begin to change, everything around you starts to shift. Self-transformation is an inner journey that requires reflection, discipline, and intentional effort. It starts with a shift in your mindset. Instead of viewing yourself as a victim of circumstance, you must recognize that your circumstances are often a reflection of the way you've been thinking and behaving. Every relationship, every challenge you face is an opportunity for growth. No situation, no matter how painful or difficult, is without value. It has the potential to shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. But only if you choose to learn from it rather than remain stuck in it. When you engage in the process of self-transformation, you stop focusing on what others are doing to you and start focusing on who you are becoming. You become aware of the ways in which you may have been weak, uncertain, or complacent. You begin to identify the areas of your life where you have given away your power, whether through emotional dependency, seeking validation, or tolerating unhealthy behavior. This awareness is the first step toward freedom. In the journey of self-transformation, the most important tool you have is your ability to change your mindset. What you believe about yourself determines how you show up in the world. If you believe you are weak, unworthy, or incapable, those beliefs will shape your actions and reactions. But if you begin to believe that you are powerful, resilient, and deserving of respect, your actions will align with that belief. You will carry yourself with confidence, setting boundaries and standards that others must respect. And the more you change your inner world, the more your outer world will begin to align with that new energy. This transformation is not an overnight process. It requires dedication and patience. It means letting go of old patterns, old ways of thinking, and old habits that no longer serve you. It means facing your fears, insecurities, and limitations head on rather than running from them. True self-transformation means becoming fully aware of who you are, acknowledging your weaknesses, and actively working to strengthen them. It means embracing challenges as opportunities for growth and seeing setbacks as lessons rather than failures. Self-transformation is not about impressing others or proving something to anyone. It is about becoming the best version of yourself for your own sake. The more you focus on your own personal growth and inner peace, the less you will be affected by the external forces that once had the power to disturb your soul. The real power lies not in changing someone else's ego, but in mastering your own. The ego is only a reflection of insecurity. The ego is often perceived as a symbol of strength and confidence, a shield that protects an individual from the vulnerabilities of the world. We tend to admire those who seem to carry themselves with immense pride, confidence, and certainty. But what if I told you that the very ego that appears so imposing is, in fact, a reflection of deep-seated insecurity? Beneath the outward appearance of arrogance, dominance, or control, there lies a fragile sense of self that craves validation and fearlessly guards against the possibility of emotional exposure. At its core, the ego is not a true representation of self-worth. Rather, it is a defense mechanism, a way for individuals to mask their vulnerabilities and protect themselves from the threat of rejection or failure. Think of the ego as a wall built around a fragile, wounded part of the self. This wall is constructed in response to past hurts, failures, or fears of inadequacy. The louder and more abrasive the ego, the more significant the insecurity it is trying to cover up. When someone projects a strong, unshakable sense of ego, they are often doing so because they fear being exposed as weak or insufficient. The more they inflate their self-image, the more they create an illusion of invulnerability. This inflated sense of self becomes a way of compensating for the feelings of inadequacy they may secretly harbor within. For example, a person who constantly seeks admiration or praise from others may not be seeking acknowledgement for their achievements, but rather as a means of validating their own sense of worth. When the validation doesn't come, their ego may feel threatened, and they may lash out, attempting to defend themselves against what they perceive as an assault on their identity. It's important to recognize that the ego thrives on external reinforcement. It is not self-sustaining. It feeds on external recognition, approval, and control over others. It relies on these external sources to feel validated because internally it is fragile and lacks a deep sense of self-worth. This is why, when someone feels their ego is being threatened, whether by criticism, rejection, or loss of control, they may respond with defensiveness, anger, or even rage. The ego doesn't respond to truth, it reacts to the threat of exposure. Insecure individuals often seek to elevate themselves above others because it masks their own feelings of inferiority. They may put others down, belittle them, or manipulate situations to create an illusion of superiority. But all of these actions are signs of insecurity, not strength. True strength is not in elevating oneself by stepping on others, but in understanding one's own value without the need for comparison or external validation. In fact, the greatest way to deal with someone's inflated ego is not by attacking it or trying to bring it down, but by seeing through it and understanding that their actions stem from a place of fear. When you see the ego for what it truly is, a defense mechanism for deep insecurity, you begin to approach the situation with compassion rather than judgment. You recognize that the more someone hides behind their ego, the more fragile they are on the inside. This realization shifts your perspective, helping you detach emotionally from the need to engage in power struggles or ego battles. The ego's behavior may be loud, dominating, and seemingly indestructible, but it is driven by a deep underlying fear of being exposed as less than perfect, fear of being abandoned, or fear of being unworthy of love and respect. Ultimately, the ego is not a reflection of power or confidence, but rather a desperate attempt to protect a fragile sense of self. And once you understand this truth, you no longer need to be threatened by it. Silence is not merely the absence of words. It is a strategic posture, a holy hush that carries more power than the loudest accusation. In the heat of relational conflict, Our first instinct is often to respond, to explain, to justify, to lash out. Yet those reactions keep us entangled in the very drama we long to escape. When you choose silence with intention, you step out of the battlefield and into a place of authority. Silence becomes the voice of your dignity, the visible boundary that declares you will no longer subject your peace to someone else's volatility. When someone thrives on attention, noise becomes their currency. Arguments, accusations, displays of pride, all are designed to provoke, to draw a reaction, to make you chase them for validation. Responding feeds that machine, but silence starves it. Your refusal to engage removes the reward that fuels manipulative behavior. You are not pretending nothing matters. You are affirming that your worth does not depend on being seen through their lens. In that calm, you reclaim your power without drama. Silence also gives you space to think and to see with clarity. Emotions are fast and combustible. Words spoken in them are rarely precise or wise. When you stop to remain quiet, you allow the fog to lift. Truth becomes clearer. Motivation behind actions becomes visible. Where previously you might have been reactive, now you can be deliberate. This pause is not weakness, it is the discipline of a strong mind that chooses when to engage and when to preserve energy for what truly matters. Moreover, silence is an instrument of transformation. In refusing to validate petty attacks, you compel the other person to confront their own emptiness. They may escalate at first, trying newer tactics to provoke you, but eventually they will face the truth. Attention is not guaranteed. That realization can be catalytic, not because you sought to humiliate, but because your quiet dignity exposes the futility of their performance. The mirror of silence reflects back what bluster cannot hide, and sometimes that reflection starts the only healing they will accept. There is also a sacred element to silence. It creates an inner sanctuary where you can listen to the deeper voice of conscience, faith, or intuition. In that sanctuary, you rediscover what you value, what you will permit, and the standard by which you will live. When external noise subsides, your true priorities speak louder than fear or anger ever could. Choosing silence becomes an act of faith in yourself, a statement that you trust your inner judgment more than the chorus of outside opinion. Practically, silence can be deployed with boundaries. No contact is a form of silence, but silence practiced while you continue to engage emotionally or digitally is hollow. Make your quiet intentional, limit interaction, refuse to answer provocations, and channel your energy into growth. Let your silence coincide with visible change, improved habits, new achievements, and the steady rebuilding of a life centered on dignity. When silence is coupled with purposeful action, it becomes a language everyone understands. You are moving forward, you will not be dragged back, and your peace is non-negotiable finally. Remember that silence is compassionate toward yourself. It spares you the regret of words said in anger and preserves your integrity. It protects your future relationships from the lingering poison of reactive exchanges. When you choose silence as a weapon, you are not training to wound, but to defend the sacred ground of your heart, to hold fast to the truth that peace is worth more than being right, and to allow time to work its clarifying and healing. Confidence is not something you have to seek or prove. It is something you must embody and cultivate from within. It is your armor, a protective layer that shields you from the arrows of doubt, criticism, and insecurity that others may hurl at you. When you walk in confidence, it doesn't just protect your sense of self, it transforms how the world interacts with you. Confidence is the quiet strength that says, I am enough, without needing to announce it to anyone. It is the assurance that you don't need validation from others because you have already validated yourself. At its core, confidence is rooted in self-awareness. It comes from knowing who you are, understanding your strengths and accepting your weaknesses. It is not arrogance or an inflated sense of superiority. Rather, it is a grounded certainty that you are worthy of respect, success, and love. Confidence arises when you stop comparing yourself to others and start recognizing your unique value. It flourishes when you stop looking for approval and start approving of yourself. When you carry yourself with the unshakable belief that you matter, others will naturally begin to treat you as if you do. Confidence allows you to stand tall in the face of adversity, to walk through challenges with your head held high. When faced with difficult situations, whether relational, professional, or personal, it is your confidence that will allow you to remain calm and composed. In the midst of emotional turbulence, confidence provides clarity. It is the inner knowing that, no matter how fierce the storm, you will not be swept away. This armor does not make you immune to pain or failure, but it gives you the strength to handle them with grace and resilience. You may stumble, but you will never be shattered. Moreover, confidence has a magnetic quality. It draws opportunities, people, and experiences that align with your own sense of worth. When you believe in yourself, you naturally attract people who resonate with that energy. You set boundaries effortlessly because confidence does not entertain the idea of being treated poorly. When you know your value, you have no need to settle for less than what you deserve. People will treat you in accordance with the way you present yourself, and when you stand confidently in your own truth, you set the bar for how others should engage with you. Confidence is also the antidote to fear. Fear thrives in doubt, in insecurity, in the unknown. But when you are confident, fear loses its power. Confidence doesn't mean you have no fear. It simply means you move forward despite it. You begin to understand that fear is a natural companion on the road to growth, and rather than avoiding it, you embrace it as a sign that you are stretching beyond your comfort zone. Every time you face fear with confidence, you fortify your armor and grow stronger. True confidence is a reflection of inner peace. It arises from a foundation of self-respect, self-care, and emotional clarity. It is not built on superficial external markers like appearances, wealth, or social status, but on the internal understanding that you are valuable because you exist. When you are centered in that knowing, you are untouchable by the fleeting opinions of others. Confidence doesn't need external validation. It simply shines from within, lighting up your path and guiding you through whatever challenges lie ahead. This armor of confidence is not something that is given to you by others, nor is it something you can simply hope for. It must be nurtured and developed, day by day. It requires practice, the practice of affirming your worth, the practice of overcoming negative self-talk, and the practice of stepping into your power, even when doubt tries to creep in. Confidence is a choice to trust yourself, to honor your potential, and to stand firm in the truth of who you are. Reclaiming your value and respect is not a passive act, nor is it a process of waiting for others to recognize your worth. It is an intentional, powerful decision to assert your intrinsic value and demand the respect you deserve, regardless of external validation. Too often we fall into the trap of thinking that our worth is determined by others, by how they treat us, what they think of us, or whether they recognize our talents and contributions. But the truth is, your value was never meant to be up for debate. It is inherent, and it must be honored by you before it can be fully acknowledged by the world around you. The first step in reclaiming your value is understanding that it is not based on external achievements, opinions, or circumstances. Value does not come from what you do, it comes from who you are. You are worthy of respect and dignity simply because you exist. Once you internalize this truth, it becomes the foundation of your self-respect. You no longer wait for others to affirm you, because you have already affirmed yourself. This self-affirmation is the beginning of your transformation. It is the moment you stop outsourcing your worth to others and start claiming it as your own. Reclaiming your respect means setting boundaries. It means deciding that you will no longer tolerate disrespect or mistreatment, no matter where it comes from. People often treat us the way we allow them to, and if we are not vigilant in protecting our emotional space, we can become vulnerable to exploitation, manipulation, or disregard. Setting boundaries is not about pushing others away or building walls. It's about drawing clear lines that communicate, I value myself enough to not allow anything less than respect to enter my life. When you set and enforce boundaries, you send a clear message to others about how you expect to be treated. And the most powerful thing about boundaries is that, once they are established and maintained, you will begin to attract people who understand your worth and respect your space. But reclaiming your value and respect also requires you to let go of the need for approval. For many of us, the constant desire for validation comes from a deep-seated fear of rejection or inadequacy. We seek approval from others because we feel that our worth is conditional on how others perceive us. But true respect and value come from within. When you stop seeking approval from others, you free yourself from the cycle of validation, seeking, and the pain that often accompanies it. You no longer need to prove your worth because you already know you are enough. This freedom allows you to make decisions based on your own truth, not based on the opinions of others. Reclaiming your value also means forgiving yourself. It is easy to become trapped in past mistakes, regrets, and missteps, especially if they've led to feelings of shame or unworthiness. But your past does not define your value. Your value is not determined by the things you've done or the mistakes you've made. It is determined by the lessons you've learned and the growth you've achieved. When you release the weight of past mistakes, you free yourself to fully embrace the present and your potential. You begin to see yourself as a person of worth, deserving of love, success, and respect, not because of perfection, but because of your resilience and capacity to evolve. Lastly, reclaiming your value and respect means stepping into your power without apology. It is about owning your voice, your opinions, and your desires. It is about walking through the world with the quiet confidence that you deserve the same level of respect you are willing to give to others. You no longer shrink back or silence yourself to appease others. You no longer play small in order to make others feel comfortable. Reclaiming your value is a bold, unapologetic act of owning your worth, asserting your needs, and showing up in the world as the powerful, deserving individual that you are. Emotional detachment is one of the most powerful tools you can cultivate in navigating life's challenges, especially in relationships. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent, nor is it about avoiding connection. Rather, it's about gaining control over your emotions, choosing when to invest in something emotionally, and understanding that your emotional state does not need to be dictated by the actions or feelings of others. Emotional detachment is about mastering your inner world so that external circumstances do not throw you off course. The first key to mastering emotional detachment is realizing that you cannot control other people. No matter how much you may care for someone, no matter how much you want their approval, you cannot control their actions, feelings, or responses. When you invest too heavily in the emotional currents of someone else's life, you risk losing yourself in their drama, confusion, and chaos. Emotional detachment allows you to maintain your peace and clarity, even when others are in turmoil. You begin to accept that other people's emotional states are their responsibility, not yours. Their happiness, pain, or frustration is not something you have to absorb in order to be empathetic or caring. The second step is setting clear boundaries. Emotional detachment doesn't mean avoiding people or shutting them out. It means recognizing when someone else's emotional turbulence is starting to affect you negatively. It means knowing when to draw a line between yourself and someone else's emotions. For example, if you are in a relationship with someone who tends to overreact, cry, or become angry at the smallest things, detaching emotionally means not getting swept into the storm. You can be compassionate without being consumed by their emotional state. You can listen, offer support, or set limits on what is acceptable behavior, but you do not allow their emotions to dictate your peace. Another crucial element of emotional detachment is detaching from the outcome. Often, we become emotionally invested in specific outcomes, whether it's hoping for a relationship to work, a project to succeed, or a person to behave in a certain way. When we get attached to outcomes, we are setting ourselves up for emotional disappointment. Emotional detachment teaches us to focus on the process, not the result. When we release our attachment to outcomes, we free ourselves from the roller coaster of expectation and disappointment. We can still work toward our goals with passion and effort, but we do so without the emotional baggage of needing it to happen in a particular way. In addition, emotional detachment involves learning to regulate your own emotions. Often, we are at the mercy of our feelings, reacting impulsively to every stimulus, whether it's a harsh word from a loved one or an unexpected setback. Mastery of emotional detachment gives you the ability to pause before reacting, to observe your emotions without judgment, and to decide how to respond thoughtfully. This means taking a step back and asking yourself, is this response in alignment with my values? Does this reaction serve my higher purpose? In this space of reflection, you reclaim control over your emotional energy, choosing responses that are rooted in wisdom rather than reactivity. Emotional detachment also means accepting that you are not responsible for fixing or saving others. Many of us feel a deep urge to help, heal, or rescue those we care about. While compassion and empathy are important, when you begin to take on others' emotional burdens, you may lose sight of your own needs and peace. Detaching emotionally means recognizing that you can offer support, but you do not have to carry the weight of someone else's struggles. It means realizing that people's healing journeys are their own, and your role is to be a witness, not a savior. Finally, mastering emotional detachment requires self-awareness. It means becoming attuned to your own emotions and knowing when you are starting to lose balance. It's about being honest with yourself when you are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or excessively emotionally involved in a situation. Through self-awareness, you can pull yourself back before emotional overload occurs. This practice strengthens your resilience as you learn to remain calm and centered even in turbulent times. Emotional detachment is not about building walls. It is about building emotional strength. It is the ability to remain emotionally steady regardless of what happens outside of you. It is a mindset that allows you to maintain your peace while still being open, compassionate, and connected to the world around you. It's about choosing your emotional energy wisely, nurturing it, and ensuring that it is not drained by forces beyond your control.